Buenos dias, everybody, and welcome to In the Know, the Minnesota Daily podcast dedicated to the University of Minnesota. I'm your host, Lucas Vasquez, and today we are diving into the question of what it means to be a Latino at the U. Is it about the food you eat, the music you listen to, the language you speak, or is it about something deeper? This is the first episode in a mini-series in which we explore what it means to not be white in a predominantly white institution. We're going to hear from a few students who are navigating these very questions. We'll hear about their journeys, their challenges, and the powerful community they've built in a group called Mi Gente. My first question for these students was, why did they choose the U in the first place? I can say for myself that cost was the principal factor in my decision to attend the U. And Minnesotan programs such as the North Star Promise, along with federal aid, were definitely pull factors for many members of Mi Gente.
I would say, I gotta be so real, it was the free tuition.
Sabrina Corra, a third-year student majoring in food science and nutrition, told me that for her, cost outweighed academics when making her college decision. Rosita Ortiz, a second-year majoring in developmental psychology, also pointed to cost being important, as well as family proximity.
It was mainly, cost, because I thankfully got my tuition paid for my first 2 years, and proximity is very close to my family, so it kind of worked out both ways.
Cost, however, may change in the future, as the University of Minnesota approved the biggest tuition increase in the past decade in June. According to the Star Tribune, the $5.1 billion budget included a 7% cut to academic programs, while also raising tuition by 6.5% for in-state students and 7.5% for out-of-state students. In a school where 75% of the students' population receives financial aid, this cost increase may deter many minority students in general from attending the U. According to the University of Minnesota student data, Hispanic students make up only 5.4% of the total 31,855 undergraduate students on campus. This is less than the 9.1% of Black students, 15.2% of Asian Pacific Islander students, and 61.1% of white students. When I first arrived at the U my freshman year, the lack of an Hispanic student population was something I quickly noticed. Being an Hispanic student myself, it was important to me to find a group of people to connect with culturally. I asked Christian Barrera, a second-year majoring in business and management education, if he had a similar experience.
During my middle school and high school years, I was very in culturally diverse schools, so it was a bit of a culture shock to see the lack of Latinos just walking around campus. Seeing this many white people was a little surprising, and kind of having to look a little deeper for the Latino community.
Ortiz mentioned feeling the same way.
It was very, lonely at the beginning because I didn't know groups like this existed, or groups like Mi Gente existed. So I was very separated from everybody. It was very hard to, focus or find a place where I felt like a community was with me until I found Mi Gente.
Mi Gente is a student organization located on the second floor of Kauffman Memorial Union. Its aim is to create a shared space for students of all backgrounds, but mainly Hispanic ones, to come together and socialize with one another. But for these students, it is a lot more than just that. They shared how Mi Gente feels like a second family of like-minded people who share their culture, a place where they feel safe to express a side of themselves that is deeply personal to their identity. Corra also commented about how spending time at Mi Gente events opened her eyes to wanting to connect with people who share her culture.
I remember my first year, not to give TMI, but I think it's pretty important. I was in a relationship with a white person, and at the time I had found out about the Orgullo event, and I had invited them, and I went with them, and when I had asked them to dance with me, they're like, no, that's weird. Why would I want to do that? I don't even know. So for me, it was it's kind of big to have someone who would be okay with accepting and whatnot.
But how do these students find each other? I asked Diego Luis, a fourth year studying sociology of law, criminology, and justice, about his experience.
Man, love Mi Gente. I discovered Mi Gente before coming to university. I was a participant in Mi Gente's high school weekend event that they had. And basically, we had breakout sessions, and the board members had different workshops. We talked about things about the university and learning more about the university. We had lunch, but they specifically wanted it to be in the Mi Gente room. So the first time I ever visited this room was 2019. And I knew that if I were to come here, I'd be a part of this family that I've seen that they've created in this community. And I think for me, being here for a while, I think I fostered a more stronger relationship with Mi Gente than I ever did in the years prior. And I think it's because a lot of the people have been so genuine, but also like, you know, there's just been a lot of transition that's been very well with this organization that I think has been something that I have been looking for, that I have finally gotten.
For Corra, her journey to the Mi Gente room was a bit different than Luis's.
In all, I'd say a big thing was their events. Their events are super awesome. Like, that's how I discovered them, was through, it was honestly the food. So going into food science, you probably already know this, but I'm a huge foodie. Their event had some amazing food. And I remember the first event, they just had a really good combination of just a lot of Mexican cuisine. And don't get me wrong, I really loved it. But as someone who is Peruvian, I was really sad that they didn't have a lot of Peruvian foods. So, or maybe even just a lot of South American foods. So hopping onto that was something that I really wanted to prioritize. And so moving forward from that to this year, from 2023 until 2025 now, we've made it a priority to also make sure that a lot of the people on board are of different nationalities, so that the people here in the room feel more welcomed and relatable and accepted in some ways.
For Nayeli Loja, a second-year student majoring in architecture, it was friend connections that brought her to the room.
I found out about Mi Gente through a friend of mine. We just saw each other walking the same direction, and he was like, "Oh, you should go to Mi Gente. The people there are really chill, really nice, they're welcoming." And I was really hesitant about going just because I didn't know anyone in the room, but I decided to just give it a shot, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, the first day I was there, I didn't know who anyone was. Very scary to talk to anyone, but I started coming to Mi Gente more often and all that. And then eventually made a lot more friends here, eventually got to meet everyone. I think Mi Gente to me, I don't know, it's kind of just like a community, a community where you are able to be yourself, feel safe no matter what.
Word of mouth was also how Barrera got involved.
It was during the first week where one of my friends ended up being told by their friend about Mi Gente and how there was a whole bunch of multicultural student groups here at the second floor at Kaufman. And so when me and him checked it out, I started getting more involved with not just being around in the room, but also going to their events and participating in what they had to offer for my first year. It really made me want to join and help. So I applied to be financial director for my second year, which is how, I'm kind of here now. I really enjoy the atmosphere that it brings. Mi Gente is the main Latinx student organization here at the U. So having that, I guess, that standard to uphold, we do it very well. And giving a voice to the Latino community, despite being on the smaller side of minorities here at the university.
Existing as a Latino student on a large campus often means navigating two different worlds. I asked Corra if she felt a difference between the mainstream activities and events the university offers versus the events that are hosted by Mi Gente.
That's a really good thing to bring up, first of all. It's really funny. My best friend, she was voted the most prideful in our year for high school because she loved football games. So I think I'm an odd one out where I'm not a big fan of football games. But a huge thing I will say is being a part of Mi Gente has made me kind of more immersed in my culture of being more into something like soccer, where it's kind of, it's silly, but I'm kind of feeling that same amount of pride I think she felt towards football, towards soccer. Another thing I would say is something that we participated in this year was the parade, and I signed us up for it because I was like, you know what, if we're walking through, we're gonna be holding up all of our flags, and said and done, yes we did. And it was super awesome because we kind of started making up a chant, and just as being in a group setting, it just makes you feel so much more first included, but also just recognized and not as afraid to be a part of these things.
Loja also talked about the difficulties of navigating the dynamics of multiculturalism.
I had a friend group, and a lot of them were just white people. So I feel when I came here, it was just kind of I didn't feel I could be myself, kind of, I had to especially with like white people, I had to like, oh, maybe I should skip this song because they won't know what this song says, you know, when we're driving somewhere, or I can't play a song that I would like, or I can't say a joke that only a certain people would understand, you know. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then if I were to compare events from like more American cultured and then Mi Gente, I feel like Mi Gente is a lot more joyful. I'm able to express myself a lot more in a way. And then when I'm at a American event or just like event from the U, it's more, I don't feel left out. I just feel like
You're a little out of place.
Yeah, I feel out of place.
Now more than ever, the importance of spaces and events that promote the expression of one's cultural background is needed. This comes especially during a time when Latin communities across the U.S. are facing increasing pressure from the current administration. Immigration and custom enforcement raids, especially, are fueling the fear facing these groups. Just this past Tuesday, November 18th, ICE activity in St. Paul swept fear throughout the cities and drew many protesters out to the streets. Armed agents wearing ICE uniforms were sighted conducting a raid on a St. Paul business, and witnesses reported people being detained and dragged off to vans and trucks. Some activists tried to contest a line set up by the agents, leading to physical altercations and eventually pepper spray being doused on the protesters' faces. In a post shared on their social media platforms this summer, Mi Gente took a stance after ICE activity in Minneapolis, stating, "We are saddened and angered by the system that continues to dehumanize immigrants and silence protest. Mi Gente stands firmly in support of immigrant and undocumented communities." Additionally, more than 225 people have watched their immigration case be dismissed at the government's request. According to the Star Tribune, they have been arrested by ICE agents after leaving the Fort Snelling courtroom. This detainment is justified through a process known as expedited removal. Expedited removal is the process by which a non-citizen is detained and deported within days, without a hearing before a judge. This process was previously reserved for migrants caught within 100 miles of the border and within 2 weeks after entering illegally. Under President Trump, however, the administration is applying it to non-citizens living anywhere who can't show they have been in the U.S. for at least 2 years. These tactics raise heavy concern among immigrant rights activists and attorneys who argue that it undermines due process rights and coerces innocent people into detention. In turn, it separates parents from their children and tears both families and communities apart. For anyone, the threat of being torn apart from your loved ones by policies like these can cause a great deal of stress and anxiety. And in that context, the idea of the family that students have found in a group like Mi Gente is priceless. It's groups like these built here on campus that provide a buffer against the fear and instability happening just beyond the university's borders. According to its members, this family isn't just about shared joy, it's also about shared concerns. It's about having a place to turn to when you are away from your home and your loved ones, a place where you can feel safe and accepted by people with shared experiences, a place where you don't have to feel like you are alone.
Honestly, the most important thing I can say is, immerse yourself in your culture. That's why I take the Spanish class. I'm always in the Mi Gente room. I'm always trying to, mostly just listen to Spanish music because I want to expand upon it more than just something that's baseline. I think it's really important to really take the time and the effort to really expand more than just the language, but also the culture, the way we write, the way we interact, the way we really speak properly with one another is really important, So that's one of the things that I've been taking seriously for myself, especially being here at this university where I'm mostly speaking English.
Many people may think that being a Latino is just about speaking Spanish, but it's truly so much more than just that. According to the United Nations, there are over 30 Latin countries, each with its own distinct culture. Luis talks about what growing up with this multicultural experience was like.
My mother is from the Dominican Republic and my dad is from Argentina. So for me, growing up in the United States has been a lot of trying to kind of understand both of the countries where my parents are from, both of my heritages, and just really kind of immersing myself in the culture. Whereas I live with my mother, but I don't live with my father. So a lot of me and how I grew up was a lot of Dominican culture, traditions, and stuff like that. But also my mom did a really good job in maintaining my Argentinian side and teaching me about those values, but also the culture that came with that. Like we would always watch national soccer team games together. You know, she'd introduce me to the different drinks and food of Argentina, as well as, you know, living with her. We obviously listened to music from Dominican Republic. A lot of it was very much a flow, but my mom did try her hardest too to make sure that I got the Argentinian side.
Being a Latino student at the University of Minnesota is not only a journey of finding your people, but a journey about finding yourself. It's about taking the time to look within yourself to answer the questions of identity and who you are. And although everyone's answer to those questions will be different, communities like Mi Gente are vitally important. In an age where human connection is done mostly through screens, having a place where people can relate to you face to face through shared language, music, food, and culture isn't just a nice perk. It's how you build a home away from home. It's how you find your familia. That is all I have for you today, folks. Thank you for listening. This episode was written by Lucas Vasquez and produced by Cece Heinen. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out at podcasting@mndaily.com. My name is Lucas Vasquez, and this has been In the Know. And as always, que tengan un buen día.